the Werewolf Experiment. We should have known something was wrong the moment we found the facility. It started like any other hike, just a weekend escape with a few friends. It was supposed to be a relaxing trip, a chance to disconnect from the grind of everyday life. There were 5 of us: Lucas, Amanda, Jake, Sarah, and me, Charlie. We'd chosen the remote wilderness of the northern mountains as our destination, an area that few hikers ventured into. It was isolated, pristine, and wild, just the way we liked it. We had been hiking for hours, lost in conversation, laughing over bad jokes when we stumbled across it. At first, we thought it was an old cabin or some kind of ranger station. It looked abandoned, dark, rusted metal structures peeking through overgrown trees and thick moss. The door to what appeared to be a building was hanging half open, and the windows were smashed or covered in grime. But there was something about it, something that didn't sit right with me. I felt a tightening in my chest, but I didn't say anything at first. "Hey, check this out," Jake called out, motioning for the rest of us to follow. "Looks like an old research station or something." We stepped closer, the eerie quiet of the place pressing in on us. As we pushed open the door, the smell hit us first: stale air, dust, and something metallic. The dim light from our flashlights danced across faded metal walls and broken furniture, remnants of something long abandoned. The building itself looked like it had been left in a hurry, papers scattered across the floor, equipment still in place, and strange, unfamiliar symbols marking the walls. "Maybe we shouldn't be here," Amanda said quietly, her voice tight with unease. "Relax," I said, trying to sound reassuring. "It's probably just an old research facility. Let's take a look around." We wandered further inside, the beams from our flashlights flickering as we explored. There were rooms filled with old lab equipment, empty cages, and more strange symbols on the walls. It felt like we were walking through the remnants of something forbidden, as if we had stumbled into the aftermath of something terrible. But it wasn't until we reached the back of the facility that we found what truly terrified me. We entered a large room at the far end, and the sight before us froze me in my tracks. Large glass tanks lined the walls, each one filled with a strange, thick liquid. Inside were bodies, human-like, but not quite human. Their features were distorted, their limbs twisted unnaturally. Their eyes, wide and unblinking, stared at us from beneath the surface. Some of them were humanoid, but others had animalistic features: clawed hands, fangs, fur-covered bodies. "What the hell is this?" Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. I could barely process what I was seeing. The grotesque figures in the tanks looked like experiments gone horribly wrong. But the more I stared, the more I realized that these weren't just random accidents. Someone or something had deliberately created these monstrosities. They were trying to make super soldiers, Lucas muttered, his voice trembling with disbelief as he scanned the room. They were experimenting on humans, turning them into these things. A chill ran down my spine as I turned to look at him. It wasn't just a research facility. It was an experiment, one that had gone horribly, irreversibly wrong. We were about to leave when a sound stopped us dead in our tracks, a low growl coming from somewhere deeper in the building. It was followed by a series of scratching noises, like claws dragging across concrete. "Did you hear that?" Jake asked, his voice tense. Before anyone could answer, a shadow moved in the corner of the room, and we all spun around in alarm. The growl came again, louder this time, more insistent. The sound of something massive, moving in the dark. I felt my stomach churn as the air grew heavier. Something was in here with us. "Get out!" I said urgently, grabbing Sarah's arm. "Now!" We backed toward the door, but As we turned to leave, the growling intensified. The sound of heavy breathing filled the air, and the floor beneath our feet seemed to tremble. Something was coming. It emerged from the shadows, fast, powerful, and terrifying. A massive creature, its body covered in matted fur, its eyes glowing a feral yellow. It lunged toward us with terrifying speed, its jaws snapping. Its movements were unnaturally quick, like it had been built for one purpose only: to hunt. We screamed, scrambling to get away, but it was too fast. It knocked Amanda to the ground, its claws raking across her legs. She screamed in pain, but it didn't stop. It dragged her toward one of the tanks, its eyes locked on us with predatory hunger. "Run!" Lucas yelled, pulling me with him as we bolted toward the exit. Jake and Sarah were already ahead of us, but when I looked back, I saw Amanda's lifeless body being pulled into the shadows. The creature was dragging her into the darkness, its growl echoing through the building. I wanted to go back, to help her, but I knew it was already too late. We made it outside, our hearts racing in our chests. The sound of the creature's growl faded behind us, but the terror didn't. We stumbled through the woods, our breath coming in ragged gasps, adrenaline fueling us to move faster, to get away from whatever nightmare we had just uncovered. We didn't stop running until we reached the edge of the forest, gasping for air. And when we finally looked up, we saw it. The road. The distant sign for the nearest town. We weren't safe yet, but we had made it farther than we thought. "Get to the car," Lucas said, his voice hoarse. "We'll call for help. Get the authorities involved. We need to warn them." I pulled out my phone and dialed 911, urging them to send help immediately. They promised to send a unit, and we waited, the sounds of the forest growing eerily quiet around us. It wasn't long before headlights pierced the night, the familiar rumble of a police vehicle growing closer. But when the vehicle pulled into view, something was wrong. It wasn't just a police car. It was 2 military trucks, their dark, armored bodies blocking the road. The vehicle stopped, and soldiers in tactical gear poured out, their rifles trained on us. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the black SUV that rolled up behind them. The doors opened, and a man stepped out. He was tall, dressed in a dark suit, his expression unreadable. "I'm Agent Reynolds," the man said, his voice cold. "You're not being saved. You're being contained." The soldiers closed in on us, their eyes cold, their movements precise. The world seemed to slow as we realized the truth. The government had known. They had known about the creatures, the experiments, and the horrors we had just uncovered. "They were never supposed to be released," Reynolds continued, his eyes scanning us with a detached interest. "And now, we're going to make sure they stay contained. You won't be leaving this place alive, not while they're still out there." The military soldiers moved toward us, and I felt the air thicken with an oppressive force, as if the weight of the world itself was bearing down on us. They hadn't come to rescue us. They had come to make sure the secret never got out. And with that, everything went dark.